What's up, everybody? Andrew Mahone here with Chicky Jim at Full Grip Games. Today I'm going to be showing off an updated version of my Lapras VMAX Electrode-GX deck. This deck has consistently been one of my favorite decks to play on Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. I play it all the time when we stream. We play it on Fun Deck Thursday. We also just play it randomly throughout the week because it is just such a fun deck to play. And I think that it is definitely a deck that can catch a lot of decks off guard. It does have some weaknesses. Obviously, it can have a tough time against Blacephalon Unbroken Bonds decks. It can have a tough time sometimes against mill decks or control decks and things like that. However, there's almost no greater feeling than just blowing up an Electrode-GX, putting all of your energy from the discard pile, up to 5 energy cards from your discard pile, onto a Lapras VMAX and using G-Max Pump to one-hit KO the biggest tag team Pokemon GX in format. Now, after playing the deck for a while, I have come to the conclusion that I really love 4 Pokemon Catchers in the deck. You see, I've got 4 different artworks for Pokemon Catcher, which is really fun, including the one secret rare Pokemon Catcher from Dark Explorers. And what's really funny is that the original text on this card actually did not include the flip a coin text. Originally, it was just switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with one of their bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon, and now the flip a coin errata has been put onto the digital version of the card, which is really cool to match the modern versions of the card that require a coin flip. So lots of coin flipping as far as the gusting is concerned, but that's because we want as many options to be able to gust up an opponent's Pokemon on the run while we're using Day-Day Change to draw a massive amount of cards, research, things like that, and just trying to burn through our deck. New to the list is a copy of Articuno-GX, whose legendary Ascent ability allows you to switch it with the active Pokemon, so it's a switch out, and you can move any number of water energy from your other Pokemon to this Pokemon when you do. It's got a very vanilla attack, 3 energy for 130 damage, but really the most interesting thing about it is Cold Crush GX. So Cold Crush GX is interesting because it gives you an option not only to send your own energy to the discard pile to charge up with Electrode-GX. It's a great turn 1 attack. If you're going second, you can Cold Crush GX and Arceus Dialga Palkia, especially with 4 copies of Pokemon Catcher in the deck. You could Cold Crush a Pokemon that your opponent is building up just to kind of reset the tempo of the game, where you're really going to go off on the second turn of the game. Some other decks also go off on the second turn of the game, and if they go first, Cold Crush GX gives you an out. It's basically a Pokemon searchable Crushing Hammer or Team Flare Grunt, if you will, which is really interesting for this deck to have access to, especially on the first turn of the game. We got 4 Pokemon Communications and 4 Quick Balls to help us get a hold of this card, and 12 water energy, so plenty of water energy too. And the ability, Legendary Ascent, just allows it to come into the active position. So it's very easy to get this card into the active on the first turn of the game, and can be a very useful Pokemon with a useful GX attack to swing the momentum of the game and give you that turn you need to use Electrode's ability, Extra Energy Bomb, to throw the energy onto the Lapras VMAX and then sweep from there. So I'm excited to get into some gameplay. The deck feels like it's at just about where I want it as far as the deck list is concerned. We did cut the 3rd Electromagnetic Radar for the Articuno-GX. I'm a little bit apprehensive to take out the Jirachis altogether, even though we have a very light Jirachi engine in the list. 2 copies of Jirachi, 2 Escape Boards, and 2 Switch is about as low as I think it can go. I've messed around with the counts of 4 Reset Stamp and 3 Pokemon Catchers, and then 4 Pokemon Catchers and 3 Reset Stamp, and I feel like 4 Pokemon Catcher is ideal because it is just for the best that you're able to target down exactly the threats that you want to target down each and every turn with this deck. So let's cut to some gameplay and see how this deck works in action. Now, one of my favorite things about this deck is that it has a shot to beat anything that it's playing against, with Lapras VMAX dealing 270 to 300 damage as early as the second turn of the game, and Electrode-GX being able to control the prizes, and then Reset Stamp being able to control your opponent's hand size. You really do have a lot of options to overwhelm the game with your opponent not having a lot of cards in their hand due to Reset Stamp and Electrode. they might not always have the response they need in order to deal with a big Lapras. Now, it looks like we were playing against a Malamar deck, so we'll see how this match goes. I think before I do anything, I want to thin the deck with Shuckle and get 3 energies out so that I have a higher chance of finding what I want off of Stellar Wish. And then this is a great start for me. I've got a turn 2 Lapras already in my hand. We know this Lapras V is going down, and I can Pokemon Communicate one of these Lapras VMAXs or Quick Ball something for a Voltorb. So we'll go here, find myself another Pokemon Communication, and we can pretty easily just trade this for a Voltorb. And then I have everything that I need in my hand to go get myself Electrode and Lapras VMAX and just go this next turn. So great turn 1 from us, going first, no supporter needed. And potentially we could just data change this next turn as well. Go into Lapras VMAX and data change if I top deck a Pokemon. Then obviously we're really stoked about that because I can Pokemon Communicate for the Electrode. It looks like my opponent is playing Mewtwo and Mew Malamar, and this is a really interesting matchup because of the fact that they can just use their Pale Moon GX against us to completely take all of the energy off of my Lapras VMAX. But that being said, Pale Moon GX not guaranteed to actually KO Lapras, so we can actually use 2 Electrodes in this matchup in order to get our energy back into play twice and overwhelm and take the win. So we do have Lapras, and then I think before I do too much else, I mean, the cool thing about Articuno is it's like this guaranteed switch. We could just go in and take a knockout on this Inkay next turn with an Articuno, and that's kind of cool. I do like that as an option. I think that we're just going to data change this hand away. My opponent's hand is not looking super excellent, so we can do that. And then if I do find options to get myself Articuno, we can just go from there. So let's see what we get over on this side. We've got Cynthia, I've got Stellar Wish, all of this. I think that I'm pretty content just getting rid of Lapras. That's fine. We can get ourselves Articuno. Not Articuno yet, because we need, well, yeah, we need some energy in play to be able to move it with Legendary Ascent. So we're not going to go for Articuno yet. I think we're just going to thin the deck a little bit, and then we're going to go in with the Cynthia here and just try to see what we can hit off of this. We're just looking for an Electrode. Be very good for us, and we actually do find an Electrode. I don't find absolutely everything that I would want. I can go for another Shuckle. I can also go for Articuno. I think I'm going to go for Shuckle. I know that they can't really do anything terribly concerning to me, so we do like having this, and I can use Pokemon Communication, trade that Lapras. We can get ourselves a Shuckle, which is good. And that way I can put some more cards into the discard pile. We can put our 5th energy into the discard pile, make sure we accelerate all 5, and then just go from there. Once I blow up the Electrode, I do have more bench space too. So we like that. And I do still have my Stellar Wish available to me. So let's go here. And we're going to throw another energy into the discard pile, just 1. And then Stellar Wish. And we do have a Quick Ball. So this is neat because I can blow up the Electrode and go get myself the Articuno, and then I can put all the energy, put some energy onto the Articuno. So I actually don't mind that. I think that's kind of a cool thing for us to do. So I'm going to throw all of that energy there. And then we can just have our energy more or less safely in 2 different places rather than all on this one Lapras. Now, of course, having all the energy on the Lapras is pretty exciting because then I can threaten a 1-hit knockout on that Mewtwo and Mew next turn. So I might decide to just keep it all on here. I know that my opponent can't knock me out. However, they could Horror House me, make me draw up this this bigger hand, which I don't necessarily want. So that could trap me in a way. I think probably the safest thing. See, I've already given them 2. If they take a knockout on this Lapras, I obviously lose. They can't Pale Moon GX this next turn. That's not possible. If they do Horror House GX, I think just having the Articuno as a threat in my hand is kind of cool. And then we're just going to switch into this Lapras, and that way if we do get Horror Housed, I'm probably safe. So we do have turn 2, 240 damage on an Inkay. No KO on the Mewtwo, which obviously would have been very exciting. But we do limit my opponent's options because they were not able to get a ton of Inkays into play. So we're just trying to go through, like, what are the options that my opponent can do? We're thinking it's probably going to be a Horror House GX. And they're going to make me draw. So that's scary because of the fact that I could draw into, I think you fill your hand to like 7. I could just draw into a ton of trainer cards, right? Horror House GX, we each fill our hands to 7. So if I draw 4 cards, I could draw 4 trainer cards, and then I would have 6 in my hand. Yes. And as we see, I do have a lot. I have 5 in my hand. And top deck water, that's very good for us. So my opponent cannot knock me out with a Poltergeist next turn, which is essential. And I can't attach that water, that's fine. Can't go with Articuno, that's fine. We're just going to G-Max Pump here. And we're not eating that spell tag damage either. So that's cool. Then next turn, you know, I may decide to go with Articuno to try and finish this thing off. Then I will just have a couple of prizes remaining. They are still very limited in what their options are, and it looks like they're going to put a Dedenne-GX down for me, which gives me another way to potentially win this game. Maybe switch some energy onto Articuno, just leaving 3 on the Lapras VMAX, and then go from there. They don't have a way to knock me out, so I'm pretty convinced. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trainers in hand, 250 damage with the Poltergeist. That is scary, but totally fine because we're so far ahead in this prize trade right now. And it looks like they're going to switch into Inkay and Data Change. They don't even know if they're going to get the energy that they need. I think they're just hoping that they can maybe pull off a gigantic Photon Geyser here. And we don't usually see spell tags in these Mewtwo and Mew Malamar decks either. So it's kind of an interesting inclusion there. But I'm guessing that they're going for a gigantic attack with Photon Geyser, or maybe they're trying to build up a Giratina for a knockout. The spell tag is a little bit scary combined with the Giratina because these Shuckles do only have 60 hit points and can go down pretty quickly. So that is something that we have to look out for as well. But I do think that I'm in a pretty dominant position with all of my prizes mapped out. And I don't think that my opponent has any real way to cleanse this damage. I mean, they could GX me. That's like a big thing. They could no, they have already GX. They can't GX me. I was gonna say they could use Miraculous Duo GX. They can't Miraculous Duo GX. It's not an option for them because they've already used their Horror House GX, and that's gonna be pretty tough for them. So they do have Cynthia. Do they find the Switch or the Air Balloon? I suspect that, you know, something had to come out for all these spell tags that they got in their list. Whether it's switches, air balloons, or some sort of card. I feel like usually it's consistency cards that have to take a hit when we're adding cards like that to the deck. So maybe they don't find their switch this turn. They do though, and they're going to get a knockout and a reset stamp. Using this Mewtwo and Mew, they could limit my hand to 5, and then they could use the Trevenant and Dusknoir Tag Team GX Night Watch and then limit my hand even further, which would be pretty scary here. And it looks like that is what they're doing. I'd love to hang on to my research if I can, and it looks like I'm able to, so that is good. And with only 30 hit points left here, I would love to take the knockout with something that is not Lapras. I could also gust up the Dedenne, knock it out this turn. I think this Lapras is more or less safe, but we definitely need to knock out the Mewtwo and Mew. So we'll promote the Jirachi. And let's just see if I can find, and I think I'm low on Quick Balls. So I'm actually, yeah, low. I'm out of Quick Balls. And that's my last Pokemon Communication. So a little bit of a tough spot we put ourselves in. We have to just find the Articuno off of these next 7 cards. Or find a switch card. So that's probably okay. We're just going to attach the energy to Lapras, and then we're going to research and see what we can draw ourselves into. We did find a switch, so we got that guaranteed knockout, and my opponent does not have a lot of Pokemon left in play. So there's really no reason to put down Articuno or anything like that. At this point, they only have 2 prizes remaining, so we do just want to knock out the Mewtwo and then knock out the Dedenne and have that be game. So we'll reset stamp, and then we've got Stellar Wish, and we'll go there. Find an escape board, perfect. And so long as my opponent can't take 2 prizes, then we should just be square to win this game. We got Lapras here. Hitting for 270 damage, a little bit overkill. They can place 4 damage counters though, so that is worrisome because they could put 4 damage counters onto Shuckle. There's like a theoretical route where they win. They would have to play a Fion and a second Giratina. I don't think that they can do that. I don't think that the Mewtwo Mew Malamar deck necessarily has enough bench space to accommodate for Fion. But if they did, right, they could, if they had put all the damage onto that Shuckle there, they could have maybe pinged a Giratina if they played a second one, which I don't think that they do. And then they could Fion, and then, well, no, then I would bring up that, so they'd have to like Pokemon double custom catcher or something. Just a little bit worried about these Shuckles having such low hit points, but I think we're going to be just fine here because of the fact that we've got a ton of Pokemon catchers in deck and 8 Dedenne-GX on my opponent's side of the field. So now we've evened it, brought it down to a 2-2 prize remaining. Lapras's 320 hit points is just absolutely a crazy amount of HP to be able to have to deal with. Now, they are going in with Dispocephalon. It snipes 4 damage counters, so they could get themselves very close to a game-winning scenario here with their own Fireworks Bomb. This guy has only got 20 hit points left. This guy's only got 50 hit points left. However, they are not going to be able to deal enough to take the game, and that Dedenne-GX is still available for me over there, and I just have to hit my Pokemon Catcher for game, so we'll see if we can do it. Here we go. And that's a Tails. Sweet. So I think we've got 16 cards left in deck. Let's take a look at what exactly is in those 16 cards. We've got an Electrode that I don't need. We've got 1 more Pokemon Catcher and 1 more Reset Stamp. So that's certainly interesting. We're going to switch into the Jirachi, and we want to find ourselves that Pokemon Catcher. And I think that as far as what's going to give me the highest chance of winning, do I use the Dedenne? I think if I research and then I look at Stellar Wish, I'm pretty much going to see the entirety of my deck. So, yeah, there's our Pokemon Catcher right there. And we see if we win the game now. We do. Excellent. So we'll bring up the Dedenne, and we got there with Lapdog. Let's go. G-Max Pump for an obscene amount of damage, and that's game. We'll roll 1 more and see if we can back it up with another win using Lapras VMAX. Looks like we're playing against another Psychic deck, potentially another Malamar. Malamar's not a great matchup for us. I have experimented with some healing in this deck, especially if this is the Giratina Malamar. I did experiment with some healing. You can play Mallow and Lana's in the list. This is a perfect opening hand, though. My goodness. You can play as well the Vaporeon-GX. So Vaporeon-GX is actually kind of a cool card in this deck because both EV-GX and Vaporeon-GX have a nice little 1 energy GX attack. So as far as what GX Pokemon is worth playing in this deck, I do think that the deck is better off with a GX attack than without one. So that is that's crucial, right? That we need to play some sort of GX attack, and I think that you know, our options are pretty much Vaporeon-GX or Articuno-GX. Those are the 2. They both only cost 1 energy, so they're very easy to fire off, even though we can't accelerate to Pokemon GX or EX with extra energy bomb. Vaporeon-GX is 1 energy GX attack, heals all damage from, I think, your water Pokemon or Pokemon with water energy on them, and then or it might just be all your Pokemon. And then Articuno-GX obviously is able to remove energy and kind of swoop in. So they both have their benefits. And then if you do play Vaporeon-GX, you can actually play EV-GX, which gets you 3 cards back from your discard pile to your hand, which can be very useful against mill decks. It can get you Pokemon catchers back and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of utility to each of them, and I think that they're all kind of worth exploring in their own way. Start off with a Stellar Wish and see what we've got. We've got a Radar and a Cynthia. I think I like Radar. I can Pokemon Communicate this Electrode and then Radar next turn. Seems pretty strong. I also could just grab the Escape Board, so that kind of guarantees me a turn 2 attack, which I do like. And then I've already got, you know, more or less everything that I need to go next turn, so we could just do that, and that would be pretty cool. I could also, yeah, if we get the Radar gets me to Dedenne and Electrode. I can Pokemon Communicate the Electrode back in for Shuckle, put some energy into the discard pile, and then just go next turn. That's kind of cool too. So I think that yeah, we'll go with the Radar. The Radar seems neat. And then we do have the Voltorb and the Lapras. We'll get an energy onto the Lapras. Pokemon Communicates the Electrode, and just thin the deck even more with a Shuckle. Now we may end up wanting to go with Articuno early on in this match. It's also a possibility for us. Either way, we're just trying to be as aggressive as possible, get as quick of an attack as we can going. So we do have 2 Escape Boards and 2 Switch in the deck. It's very good. Going to give us some options to get out of that Jirachi. And the Radar, we can just Radar away the Water Energy, whatever our top deck is for the Electrode, and just go from there. 4 Pokemon Catchers is going to be very good for us because we're going to have the option to gust around these spell tags. Spell tags certainly going to be annoying, but one of the coolest things about the Lapras is that it can actually take 3 hits from a Giratina. Also, if this Malamar deck is playing heavy counts of Copycat Mimikyu, that doesn't really do anything to us because of the fact that our Lapras VMAX attack does base 90, which is fine. And then it does more damage for the amount of water energy attached, so Malamar is not really going to be able to replicate that well for a Copycat attack. Now, it is looking like we're probably going to be able to fire off this turn 2 attack here, and they're probably going to pass with a Jirachi in the active. They've got no shortage of spell tags, that's for sure, and have found themselves a Giratina with an energy. And now it's our turn. So let's see what we can get off of this Radar. Double water, that's totally fine. So we're going to do that. Get ourselves an Electrode, and then I think I'm just going to research, save the Dedenne in the deck. No real reason to waste one. So let's just do that. Got ourselves into an Escape Board and some Quick Balls and some Dedennes. Unfortunately, we were not able to find a Lapras VMAX yet, but that is yet. I could always go in with the Articuno early, so that is an option for us, and I do kind of like that option. Let's Quick Ball away the Dedenne. I don't think that my opponent is going to be disrupting my hand at all, so that's nice. So we can get ourselves the Articuno-GX just to kind of thin the deck, and then we'll Stellar Wish, and we've got a Viridian and a Research, and I think I like the Research better. So what we're going to do here is we are going to, so I don't have to Ocean Loop the cards back to my hand, we are going to Extra Energy Bomb, throw all these energies into play, and I don't really actually have to do that much damage in this match because of the fact that my opponent's going to be going in with this Giratina. So having the Articuno-GX as kind of an auxiliary attacker is really nice here, and we do have the Reset Stamp, so we're going to be limiting my opponent's hand size real early as well, and just hoping that they don't have a fantastic draw here. And like I said, this is part of what makes it so that the Lapras deck can compete with just about anything that we face off against, just because of the power of Reset Stamp and the deck alone. So you never know, we could win this even though we are a GX deck that gives up prizes against a non-GX deck. So yes, we are going to go in with that, and we're going to take our 3 energy onto the Articuno, and conveniently Articuno does enough damage to take knockouts on anything that we'd want to KO in this deck. And what's also cool is that now I'm going to get to manually attach to another Lapras, and we're just going to go in with Ice Wing, take that knockout, and we're going to try and force my opponent to deal with as many Pokemon as possible while they're setting up. So ideally, they miss the attack this turn. Now, they would have to have a really bad turn in order to miss the attack. They would have to miss a Malamar. I'm pretty sure they've already got 2 Psychic Energy in the discard pile. they would have to miss a Malamar and an energy from hand. That's all they need. It's just a 2-card combo in order to, you know, put some pressure on here. And that's not asking for a lot. However, they can deal 130 damage to the Articuno-GX. We can potentially find a Gust and Gust around and make my opponent have to swing into this twice. Now, ideally, yes, we make our opponent have to swing into this twice. We really don't want to let this Articuno-GX go down to a spell tag. That would be pretty bad because then it's the equivalent of them getting a 1-hit KO on my Articuno, which we can't really afford. So it looks like they are able to find a research. It's a big draw for them off of that Reset Stamp 4, and they do have the Malamar. Assuming that they either find another Malamar or an energy, they're going to have that turn 2 Shadow Impact. And they're setting up very well for themselves. They've got the Viridian too. So we'll see what we can do, but definitely feeling like this matchup is going south for us, which is one of the weaknesses of the Lapras VMAX deck. Of course, the primary thing we want to face off against is like bigger tag team Pokemon and not necessarily 130 hit points, you know, Giratinas that wear spell tags. That is not necessarily in our wheelhouse for the Lapras deck, but the deck's still consistent. It operates, does what it needs to do, and is a blast to play. And I suspect that this match will be relatively close, all things considered, even though this is a pretty atrocious matchup. So thinking that, you know, our ideal play here is to soak a hit with the Articuno, gust up this Malamar and KO it since it's not wearing a spell tag. Then we're going to be dealt a knockout from this Giratina, and then we're going to have to go up with a Lapras VMAX, and we'll have 2 prizes remaining. Next turn I need to get an energy dropped onto this Lapras V. The problem is that eventually I will have to hit into a spell tag, and then the Shuckle could just go down due to a spell tag hit. And I don't have any Pokemon catchers down yet, but this Giratina is just going to be churning out damage turn after turn, and that is going to be pretty tough for us to withstand. Cold Crush here is not going to do anything for me. This is a matchup particularly where I think the Vaporeon GX would be a lot stronger, especially since our Laprases have 320 hit points. The Vaporeon GX could fully heal our Laprases after they soak some damage. So I do think the Vaporeon GX is a card worth considering in the deck. Let's see what we can do. We've got our Lapras. We've got a Viridian. So I'm going to thin that out of the deck as well. Go attach to the Lapras V, and then research this hand. We've got a couple of Pokemon catchers and another Lapras VMAX. So I do like that. And we got to see if I can at least get myself around this Giratina this turn. And we do, so that's good. We can bring up this Malamar on the bench and just Ice Wing that, which does give us another turn. So it's very good. And it's going to inch us a little bit closer here. And I am wondering, you know, what they have in their deck as far as being able to finish off my Pokemon that are on the bench. Ideally, we're going to want to take a couple hits with Lapras and then go into my other Lapras and then swing a couple more times. But I am very scared of the amount of spell tags over there. And I know that this Shuckle, as soon as I hit into one of these Giratinas, the Shuckle is going to be taken as a bonus prize. So the question is, am I going to be able to save this Jirachi? And they just found a 4th spell tag. Not a lot of lists are running 4 spell tags anymore. So that is even scarier for us to deal with. And the amount of Pokemon that I can target down safely without eating a spell tag is dwindling pretty fast. So they have pretty much their whole board built up at this point, and I have 4 prizes left to take. I don't think that we can win, especially with all of these spell tags here, but we'll see what we can do. As far as the trade goes, having to give up the 2 prizes with Electrode, it's going to just end up being probably too much for us to handle against this deck. But never say never. So we'll see what we can do. I do have a couple of Jirachis here. Let's Viridian, we can go into the deck just one more time and get ourselves water. I've got 2 Pokemon catchers left in the deck and a Reset Stamp, which is pretty good. So let's go in Stellar Wish, and we find ourselves Switch, Research, Cynthia. I'll take the, honestly, take the Research. I think that's fine. There's not really anything in this hand worth saving. At this point, if I lose, it's going to be because of the Shuckle and the Jirachi, so the second Jirachi doesn't actually matter. So we can go in here, Stellar Wish again, find ourselves a Pokemon Catcher, and then we're just going to switch into one of our Lapras VMAXs. And let's see if we can gust around. We can't, so we're going to switch here and research, and I'm slowly running out of these gusts. So it's looking bad. Do have Reset Stamp, though. So we can limit them to a 2-card hand, but they've already got the guaranteed attack with their Giratina on board, and I'm anticipating that they are going to try and just play around my Laprases altogether. They have no interest in knocking out Lapras. They see some low-hanging fruit right here. They've got Jirachi, they got Shuckle. They can just go for that. It does make you wonder, would the deck be better without the Jirachis in it? I think that the Jirachis are nice, little consistency boost and phenomenal pivot. They're also great to start if you open them to set the deck up, but they can, of course, come back to bite you in these kinds of scenarios here. We see the damage making its way onto the Shuckle there on the bench. We know that they're going to be able to bring that Giratina back with Distortion Door. That's 10 more damage. And I am, I think, out of Pokemon Catchers at this point. 3. I've got 1 left in the deck. So, they could actually swing with Mimikyu. Looks like they're powering up Mimikyu. It's kind of odd. Swing for 90 damage with that. I would anticipate that they would probably be going in with their Giratina, dealing 130 damage with Shadow Impact, rather. Seems like that would make more sense. But 90 damage with Mimikyu is not bad. And does, you know, put my Lapras in kind of a compromising situation. And if they do play a card like Esper, that's always something that we have to look out for as well. Esper could finish off my Lapras on my bench after it takes a hit from a card like Mimikyu, and then if I eat Spell Tag, then they could just finish off my Lapras VMAX on the bench for game. Looks like they're just building up a couple of attackers here. Going to be going in with the Giratina more than likely and hitting for 130 damage. And I'm put in another situation where it's like, I would like to gust, but then if I gust, I leave this Giratina here. It's just a bunch of, you know, really tough situations. And I think that we are, at this point, pretty much out of contention because of the Malamar deck's just this machine deck. It sets itself up. You know what it is. Giratina is attacking every single turn from here until the rest of the game. So with 140 damage on myself, I do still have enough HP to be able to withstand another Shadow Impact, but not if I hit into Spell Tag. If I hit into Spell Tag, I'm at 180, and then 180 plus 130. I guess then I would be 10 hit points away from a KO if they put all the Spell Tag damage on my Lapras. But then they could just use the Giratina and ping that if this ever moved its way to the bench, and it's just gonna be really tough for us. But you know, we'll go through the motions here. So we've got ourselves a Water Energy. We'll go ahead and toss that onto this bench guy, and then just thin the deck, and we can Cynthia here. See if we can save face at all in this match. I think I do need to pivot this Lapras to the bench. That is an absolute, and we'll go in with this new one and G-Max Pump, and I still have 2 prizes left to take. So I think that we're just going to be a couple turns behind, unfortunately. And like I said, if you want to have a better matchup against a deck like Malamar with your Lapras deck, consider that Vaporeon GX. And I'm going to show off the Vaporeon GX after this game. I think that it's a card that is it fits in the deck very well, and I've actually played some games with it, and I did really like what it brings to the table. And that's going to be game there just with the Distortion Door. They had enough damage with the Spell Tag and all of that. So unfortunate there. The Jirachis and the Shuckles just proven too much of a liability against the Spell Tags. 4 Spell Tags in Giratina Malamar. That's kind of something that we would have been able to guess heading into the match. But all in all, I think this deck is still a force to be reckoned with, and it is a lot of fun to play. If you're looking for something fun to give a spin, consider Articuno-GX. Also consider Vaporeon GX. And I think Vaporeon GX could have swung the tides in that match. We also could consider cutting the Jirachis all together to give us some more space. So Cure Shower GX, heal all damage from all of your water Pokemon. And Hydrating Drops gives you once during your turn, you may heal 30 damage from your active water Pokemon. So Hydrating Drops gives you some extra sustainability on your Laprases, which is very good, especially against decks like Giratina, Malamar. Also, Cure Shower GX, you can heal all damage from all of your water Pokemon. So you could potentially build up 2 big Lapras VMAX and then soak hits with both of them while using Hydrating Drops, and then Cure Shower GX them and then go back in and continue swinging away. So I would definitely consider that. Also, the EV-GX, the ugly one. Where are you at, EV? EV-GX. We don't actually have the ugly one in our deck, but I would play the Vaporeon GX with EV-GX. Ascension DNA can completely heal itself when it evolves, which is nice, but then also Joymaker GX, put 3 cards from your discard pile into your hand. Great for getting Pokemon catchers and stuff like that back from the discard pile. So I think that both Joymaker GX and the Cure Shower GX on Vaporeon GX are both good options to consider for this deck as well, and something that you could play if you are worried too much about the Malamar matchup. So this is the 59 card skeleton. If you want to fit in that Vaporeon GX, you could try taking out the Jirachis and changing the escape boards into more switches and going from there. I think all in all, this deck is, like I said, a lot of fun and definitely one of my favorite decks to play on stream. So make sure to check out the channel, twitch.tv/TrickyJim on stream. We stream Pokemon trading card game content every single weekday. Also, make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, ring that bell, and of course, check out FullGripGames.com. FullGripGames.com. Shopping there directly supports the content that I produce here on Tricky Jim. If you're looking to sell some cards, you can submit a buy list. I've got a video on FullGripGames.com about how to use the buy list. If you've got some extra cards laying around, you can send them into Full Grip after submitting a buy list, and we'll get you some cash for those cards. It really helps the business a lot and helps me here at Tricky Jim. So thank you guys so much for supporting Full Grip. If you're looking for PTCGO codes to build decks like this, make sure to check out FullGripCodes.com for a great selection of Pokemon trading card game online codes instantly delivered via email. That's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting the channel. I'll catch you all later on Twitch. Take it easy. Peace.